welcome everybody to Teaching Tuesdays. We're trying to do something a little different, kind of going forward. So, as you all know, we have partners that are very, very good at different strategies or types of real estate, right? So Nicole and I both started in single family and then we got into multifamily. So we kind of do multifamily now. Jane and Sharon with the Academy that you all know are single family experts, right? And they kind of run the Academy. So they're here. And then we have a friend of ours who has done incredibly well with notes. He's actually local also here in the Baltimore area, even though Jane and Sharon are down in Florida now. So we'll be bringing in notes because you can do notes with single family and you can do notes with multifamily. Actually, somebody just sent me a possibility to invest in a note on I think it was like an 82 unit or something like that. So just the note, not the building itself, even though obviously they're kind of connected. So hopefully we'll provide some value from a lot of different avenues for people. And then you can have fun and get creative and I'll talk a little bit about the deal that Mel and Freddie and Joanna are looking at a little bit, if nobody else has a deal, and hopefully everyone does. But so anyway, everything started because of Nicole, who actually is down in Florida vacationing right now. She started in real estate 27 years ago in commercial real estate. And she started teaching a class 11 years ago. I took a class about 8 years ago. We ended up getting along. So now we're partners. And overall, the portfolio encompasses a little over 6,000 units. So we've been incredibly lucky and incredibly fortunate and blessed. And Nicole has always been a tremendous help to me, giving of her time. And she continues to do that for everybody. So I'm kind of on the same page, just trying to, pay it forward. And yes, of course, we do have the course. And I strongly encourage you, if you are going to get into multifamily, take the course because it's only $2,000 and it'll save you tens of thousands of dollars. It'll keep you from stepping on a landmine. Same thing with the Academy and single family. And then obviously when Renard Owens, who is about to retire from the police force in Baltimore, I think in September, once he's on board, then that as well. So all right, so Jane and Sharon, since we're kind of this is the new format, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon McKenzie.
And Jane Roy.
And we're head of the Virtual REI Academy, as James explained. And it's a platform that we have many practitioners that are also teachers that put a lot of valuable content with all kinds of real estate investing with the single family realm, especially creative financing. That's what we love to try to piece together. Meals do creative financing. Maybe on face, the house doesn't look like it would be a good deal. And then you really get down into the meat and potatoes and try to structure different different ways to create this deal. And then you end up getting a home run or a really good return on your investment. So it's we have many people, dozens of people that are on the Academy teaching that are very successful.
And your class just got uploaded, so.
Awesome. And Nicole included, she teaches a lot of good segments on there as well. Thank you, James. It's good that it was ours got uploaded. We have a couple other ideas for in the future. So
absolutely. So and then Renard Owens is the other person's name who's not on now, but he will be here in the next couple of weeks and stuff like that. So Jane and Sharon, how do you want to start?
Do you want to ask anybody if they want to go over a deal or?
Okay.
Yeah, who's got a deal?
Who's got a deal?
If you have a deal that you wanted to go. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say Erin had some questions. I was wondering if she had a deal or just some questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have questions. Yeah, I do. I have some questions about a potential deal. So this is kind of like new territory for me. So I thought I'd bring it to you all as the experts and get your opinion on one, just how to, if it is something that to consider, how to potentially structure it, et cetera. So I've been doing a lot of work with a with a builder, and he's done a lot of work. He's been in business for like 35, 40 years. a lot of new construction homes, custom homes, but also multifamily, et cetera, et cetera. So he's basically done it all. And so we're looking at putting together some new development projects. And one is up in Hanover, Pennsylvania. We've got about a 3-4 acre piece of land that we're looking to do townhomes on it. And so we're looking to put it together, probably that with this location and the size of the lot, et cetera, he foresees we can probably do between 30 and 40 townhomes on it. And so we're thinking about half of them would be rentals and half of them we'd probably sell them for cash flow purposes. But we definitely want to get some investors involved to kind of kick off the project and get some cash behind it to get it going. So that's kind of like the very high level overview of it. And so I just wanted to kind of, again, get your feedback on it, where to start, and, you know, are there investors that are within this network that would be interested in at least kind of scoping out this project a bit from your experience?
So I guess a couple things. How many acres is it?
It's between 3 and 4 acres.
3 and 4 acres. Okay. And then 30 to 40 townhomes, and then half you're going to build to rent and the other half you're going to build to sell retail.
Well, that's the thought at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so have you guys kind of written up any kind of pro forma and said, you know, we think that if it costs us X amount of dollars or whatever it is, this is the kind of return that our investors can expect to get?
We haven't gotten to that stage, that point yet. So we're more in kind of the conceptual, is it kind of worth it to put this together? And is this something that, you know, investors would be interested in taking a look at, I guess, before we start putting like the details on paper.
Yeah.
But from his perspective and experience of what he knows it will cost to build them versus what we can turn around and sell and rent for, you know, he feels pretty certain, obviously, the numbers would make sense,
Okay.
but we do have to do that due diligence.
Yeah. So obviously at the end of the day, it's all about the numbers, right? So I've looked at a couple of projects kind of like that. So I personally have not done yet new construction. All right. So kind of full transparency here. The projects that I looked at, they came in phases, right? And where is I can't remember his name. Who's the guy from Nashville, guys? Jane and Sharon.
That's Doug.
Doug, and he's not
Simpson.
here.
Doug
No.
Simpson.
Okay. So Doug builds like $1 million houses down in Nashville and $2 million houses, and he's been doing it forever. So he might be somebody good to kind of pick his brain as well, because he actually bought lots and then he builds on the lot and then he sells, kind of thing. So the build to rent model is really popular right now because interest rates are so high that a lot of people can't afford, you know, to move into houses. So like I live in Ellicott City, and, you know, like 2 miles from here, they bought some land like 3 years ago, and they're putting up probably 40 townhouses, and they're all rentals. And they're huge. They're 5 stories, right? One's a garage, granted, but then it's 4 stories above that. So I don't know what the rents are going to be, you know, $3,500, $4,500, $5,500 a month or whatever it is. So the model is definitely there. Hanover, I'm not familiar with. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know what the demographics look like up there. I don't know what the cost of housing is. I don't know what the demand is. So when we go in and we buy a multifamily, the number one thing is, you know, what is the demand, right? If we either purchase a product, or in your case, if you build a product, you know, is there enough demand there to absorb that supply at a reasonable price where you can make a profit? So do you know about what you're going to sell them for? Do you know what the market will bear?
Yeah, I mean, I think for that area, so Hanover's kind of like a suburb of York, Pennsylvania, kind of, you know, in that area. So it's definitely a B market. It's expanding, it's growing. Because a lot of people from Maryland are kind of pushing out to Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania, and that's a prime location because it's right over the Maryland PA line.
Okay.
And I mean, you're literally 5 minutes, you know, to the Maryland line, and then 30 minutes to 40 minutes down into Baltimore. So,
Right.
but as far as kind of what they would sell for, I think, you know, probably for townhomes in that area, it's going to be mid 2 to 3s. Rents are kind of going to probably be between I don't know, probably 2,000 to 2,500 would be my guess. Maybe a little bit less.
Okay, so I mean that's reasonable, for a townhouse. I know York a little bit, not Hanover, but again, I've heard of it. So that sounds reasonable for a townhouse in York, 200 to 300 grand, or near York or whatever it is, and the rents sound reasonable as
Yeah.
well. For that price point. Now, in terms of what the market can bear, I'm thinking if you're, traveling into Hunt Valley or into Baltimore, whatever it is, 2,000, 2,500 bucks or whatever it is to get, I guess, how many square feet of the townhouses?
We haven't chosen like a floor plan yet for them yet, or model for them. So I think, but I would guess they're going to be probably around 2,000 square feet, maybe give or take a bit.
Okay, that's a good size. Um, so the people that have brought me deals to build, um, one made a lot of sense and was actually up in Pennsylvania. I'm trying to remember where the guy was and what they were doing. I want to say it was like 230 units or something like that. And they were doing it in phases. And then somebody else sent me something also in Pennsylvania, across the line. I can't remember what it was, but that was like a 3-phase thing also. They had townhouses, single family homes, and a little bit of retail for like a couple restaurants and stuff like that. And your developer, friend knows this, I'm sure, much, much better than I do. But rather than just like what we do when we're buying a multifamily, rather than saying, okay, great, something, we're going to buy this property and we're going to need $1 million in rehab dollars, right? Your choices are you bring in $1 million, right? But then you have to start paying interest on that $1 million from day one, right? Whether it's to your
Yep.
investors or to whoever it may be, if you're doing a bridge loan, whatever it may be, right? So what a lot of these individuals have said is that, we do it in phases. So exactly what you're talking about. So this one project, what they said was, they had two pieces. One was single family, one was townhouses, kind of the same thing, very close to each other. I don't know if you've talked to the local government and stuff like that. They were going to get a huge tax abatement for developing these properties up there. So maybe something to look at. But the goal was, okay, great. Something, we're going to build 3 houses and they're going to sell, I think at the time, for like 3.25 or something like that. Right. So this is in Ohio. So, anyway, about 325 or whatever it is. And the way they had the math done is like we sell 3, right? And we've already started the foundations on the other 3. So we take the money from that and then we build the next 3. So their front money from the investors was not as much as saying, oh, okay, we're going to build, whatever it was, 80 houses or whatever it is. So we need to get this loan and this amount of money. So they kind of did it in phases. I think people are open to that. My concern was it's a strategy that I am not completely familiar with, right? So it's not really in my comfort level, but I love business. So I was like, I spent, hours with these guys kind of going over the numbers. And the thing that turned me off is that they really didn't have the level of detail that I would expect to make me comfortable. So to your original answer in terms of investors and stuff like that, specifically because it's not there, right? It's basically, I mean, it's a concept, right? It's just kind of air right now. The
Yep.
more, I love you. Sorry, my daughter was leaving. Um, the more detail you have to make them comfortable in something like this, I think is critical. If your friend has a ton of experience, obviously that helps, his resume or her resume, their resume, whatever it may be, obviously will help with the credibility. But at the end of the day, if they can't touch it, see it, feel it, it's risky, right? So you may have to pay a little bit more in returns maybe than if you had bought an existing building and they had something to fall back on, right? They could at least get their money back, because at the end of the day, most investors, more than anything else, just want to get their principal back, right? They want to invest it, they want to make money, but at the end of the day, they want to make sure that their principal is secure, just like a bank, right? So you have
Yep.
to be able to overcome that I guess uncomfortable in this, if you will, to make sure they're like, okay, I got all the details. And at the end of the day, you, Aaron, I mean, you've run big businesses. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you don't have all the data, or if there are holes in the data, you don't want to leave it to chance, right? Especially now with, well, new construction and cost of labor and cost of materials and, new rules. Thank God you're not doing it in Baltimore City. You're doing it in
No way,
Pennsylvania.
Jose.
So kudos to you. So anyway, those are kind of my 2 cents. Does anybody else have something they can help Aaron with, or do you have any more questions, Aaron?
Well, I guess one question before anybody else adds in, is there anything within the course that is like a template of this, of like of the pro forma or documentation that you would recommend that I put together in more detail?
No, because we've never done it and we don't like to teach something we've never done. The pro formas are in there in terms of projections, but they don't have anything to do with the construction. And the challenge from your view, from my viewpoint about where we're going to invest would be like, all right, what's the timeline? How long is my money going to be sitting out there until I get some sort of return? Because if I give you $1 million and it's going to take you a year, right, to get something up, you have to do the infrastructure, you've got to get permits, you've got to do all that stuff. You've got to be careful, you can't pour concrete in the middle of the winter and all that other stuff. So it's going to be a year till I get my money back. That timeline is critical.
Right.
So I wish I could say, oh yeah, module 32, just do that. But unfortunately, we don't. So, but Ernie's the builder. Ernie's on here, right? Ernie, you on here? I thought I saw him.
Yep, I'm on here.
Ernie, give
down
us
here somewhere
on building.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can do both.
See you both.
See you
so on building, what was the question again? I switched spots, but I know we're talking about building and doing townhouses and what they're doing up in Hanover, but what was the last question you just had?
I was just asking if there was some sort of example kind of pro forma in the course documentation that could assist in kind of putting all the details together without me searching down something to do it with, but there isn't. So I'll do some research and find one.
Yeah, I mean, from really kind of the big perspective in is like, how many doors are you trying to create? And then ultimately, what's your price point for selling those, or what is it, if you're buying, to James's point earlier, if you're buying them to have as a rental, then what does that look like? Because you obviously have a higher build cost going into it on long term, so you have a higher upfront cost and higher maybe carrying cost at the time. So maybe instead of it being like $2,200 a month, you're spending like $3,200 a month, and then you have to get like $3,800 $4,000 coming in on that property. So you just have to understand like what your back numbers are and work your way back to the beginning and what product actually fits with your model. And so obviously the more doors you have, then that dissipates the cost spread out across, 10, 20, 30 units, whatever that is. So you can really help minimize a lot of your costs because those guys or trades are staying on your property. They're just going door to door to door to door and doing the work. So you're able to start saving both on materials and labor in a lot of ways that way. If you have a repeatable product, so you're building the same units over and over, you run through all of the issues in the first couple, and then after that, you've already kind of know what the hiccups are, and you can always kind of plan for those a lot better. So the speed of process is greater and more efficient. You already know how much material it takes to build it. You already know how much, how many toilets and how many sinks and the style, and you have all those details. So I think once you kind of have that all the end numbers in place, then you start working your way back. You'll kind of come up with what works best. So To James's point, there may not be like really one piece of like detail that's out there for you, because they're really all different in a lot of ways. There are a lot of guidelines that can help you, but I don't, to be very specific for your project, until you start developing what that looks like or is, it's kind of hard to really have numbers at it versus just kind of a basic, guesstimate, if you will.
Yep, that makes sense.
So I'm curious about, so those are all really great points, Ernie. I'm wondering, just in your experience, so I know we talked to, I can't remember the builder's name down in North Carolina. Is it John or Richard?
Dan. Oh, yeah, John.
Yeah, so he was talking what, like 250 a square foot or something like that? Is that what he brought up? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, but realistically, like on our side, and like we can, if we're controlling it and we're the GCing on it, I mean, obviously our cost is going to be less than what that is, but obviously, everything's got to have a profit in it, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately, yeah, he was talking about like 240, 250. I think we can, most of the other builders that I know, I think we're still building relatively at about 130 to 150, somewhere in that ballpark. But it also depends on the product and the area. I mean, obviously, Hanover versus like Miami, Florida are going to be significantly different, right? So it really depends on your market, trades, supplies. I mean, name it all. It's, it varies greatly in different areas. So you just have to kind of see what it is in your markets.
Yeah, and I think we'll be able to nail that down pretty easily. I mean, the builder that I work with, like I said, he's got really established business up here and has been doing it for 35, 40 years. So he knows his numbers as far as that goes. So
yeah, and he's got, he's obviously got the skill set. He understands the estimating. He understands how to take that product and, look at the blueprints and kind of come up with some cost to it and then what's beneficial for him and for you. And he'll be able to kind of give you, the bird's eye view looking down and how much it would be about square foot. But realistically, for you as a developer, if that's what your course of action is, you want to understand your KPIs, all your key performance indicators. You want to understand, where your benchmarks are at. You want to understand like the material selections. You're not going super high in the selections for your price point of rents that you're trying to put in. So there are a lot of things you just want to be conscious of. Don't just rely on the builder because he's the expert or supposed to be the expert, because that's where a lot of people lose their shirts at, because they rely, because they built this rapport with this person, and their visions aren't aligned, and then they separate ways. And then, you're kind of stuck looking for someone else. So you can get into a bind really quickly. So you still have to be knowledgeable and understand what it is that you're building.
For sure. Okay, that's good. Good feedback.
I'm also wondering.
Thank you.
If you're like when I was doing this, not building, but doing, flips and stuff like that, I think we were like at a $120 a square foot at the time. So it hasn't gone up that much, I guess, or maybe I was being charged too much at the time. But if you're at a $150 a square foot, Aaron, and you're gonna build a 2,000 square foot townhouse right off the bat just for the house, right? Not the roads and the parking and all the other stuff, you're already at 300 grand.
Correct. Which I got a guy here in the Charlotte market that he's, I was just talking to today actually, and he's showing me this 1,300 square foot house that he's got that's went on a 0.18 acre of a land. So it's very small, house that way. And it's a kind of your standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath, actually, I think 2.5 bath or whatever. And I was like, I was asking him, he's like, we're $220,000 all in. And I was like, $220,000. And I was meaning to kind of do this when I got back, but on 1,300 square feet, it's about $170 a square foot. And that was also including like a, $38,000 on land purchase. So, I mean, and then you have, obviously tap fees and different stuff that goes into it. But he was at about $170 a square on building. So I was like, that's, you know, it's not 240 and it's not 150, but
Yeah.
that's still pretty good, right?
Yeah, we're doing custom homes right now and in Pennsylvania, and basically from a retail perspective of what we're quoting potential buyers is 250 a square foot. So that has the margin built into it already. So
and this is just kind of my 3 cents, if you will. I've gotten away from doing custom builds because of the headaches that come along with doing a custom build, right? Because at the end of the day, the person that you're building the house for is putting it to their taste and their likings because that's their design, right? But there's been more times than not where people have gotten stuck on the back end because, again, the relationship, something happened. The buyer decides not to buy anymore. The builder is kind of stuck with this product that's customized to this end seller, and it's very specific taste. Maybe it tastes in tile, maybe it's taste in toilets, maybe it tastes in whatever. So when I partnered up with another buddy of mine, and he was doing an 88 house subdivision, the goal of it was, and that's really what most builders do, is they create kind of like 4 or 5 packages of houses, right? And within those packages, they have maybe 2 or 3 different options. And these are all incremental costs that go up. But once you pick those selections, whether, hey, I'm package A and I'm taking unit, selection, 1 out of that. And here's my cost. And when you do that, your all your sub trades, they know what packages they're doing. They know what materials go into it. You're fixing it. So it's somewhat kind of a little bit, custom, if you will, but ultimately you're building a package that works. And if they want to do whatever they want to do to the house afterwards, then let them do it, right? But they're building the house to your specs, and it just helps you be a lot more efficient and you make a lot more profit out of it. Just my 3 cents.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you do a one-off build for anybody, I mean, you're dealing with a brand new product, brand new issues, brand new things you run into. Subs don't necessarily give you the best pricing because they don't really know what they're going to run into. Even with it being new construction, and they can see blueprints, there's still some things they run through.
So Ernie, I had a question. So I wonder. So like somebody comes and says, hey, James, I want to buy this, 40 unit building, whatever it is. By the way, it's completely empty, right? I got to go in, I got to strip, I got to do everything. Then I'm like, yeah, have you thought about leasing up or whatever it is? So they're like, yeah, it's going to cost me $1.75 a square foot. I'm like, okay, what about carrying costs? Oh, I didn't build that in. What about if you're going to sell them, right? You're going to have to pay a commission, right? And all that other stuff. So when you talk to this friend of yours or whatever it is at $1.75, was that just all in? House is built, doesn't include carrying costs, or does that include carrying costs, or that's an added expense above and beyond that?
So this individual that I'm talking about, he does both self-funding. He does also takes on private partners, and so the particular project he's on, he's got a private lender on, in which case they get paid out at the end of this transaction, and whatever percentage it is that I think, and I want to say that it was like 7 or 8% that he pays them. So because they're doing most of this stuff out of their IRAs, which is ultimately he's dealing mostly with people that are in that not retirement age, but really they're just not doing a whole lot with their IRAs. And it was just an opportunity for them to go and make, essentially double what they can in the market, and having kind of the tie to the real estate side, right? So in that example, I mean, so he has a very low cost, and most of these they're maybe are like, they're not looking at that monthly spend. They're looking at just at the back end. Hey, I'm making 7 or 8% on the return, which is the ideal side, right? I don't want to have a monthly spend because I'm taking care of all the construction costs and everything else along the way. But there is that same draw schedule that goes along with it. hey, we get to a certain point, we do this draw, us as the builder, we're up fronting a lot of the first portion of it until we get to our first draw, so it really just depends on who the parties are involved in the transaction and how you have the terms, drawn out for it, I think.
Awesome. Appreciate that. That's awesome. And remember, you're gonna come up and help me build that townhouse development up here and that. Oh, you didn't hear about the first part. You just got committed to coming up here and helping me build. So
hey, as long as we're doing it in the spring, summer, or fall, I'm good.
you good? Okay. All right. That's a
Yeah.
good deal.
Winter time, I don't go too much above the Virginia border these days.
It's not that far. It's like 50 miles above the border. Come on.
Well, I lived in Virginia. I lived in Virginia for a couple of years, so it gets in the valley. It gets pretty cold. So I'm like,
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So, okay, awesome. Well, Aaron, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Hopefully there
Thank you.
was a little bit of value there.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I'm sorry that we don't specifically do that, but maybe some talking points or some things to think about based on what Ernie has shared with us, which was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So, okay, awesome. So, what other questions or deals do people have? And again, doesn't have to be a deal that you are, about to close. It can be a deal you're looking at. It can be a question about pretty much anything. But if you have a specific deal that you're looking at that you have questions on, that would be the best. That would be optimum.
I'm going to wait and see if someone's got some stuff, but I have a property I'm going to use as a case study for this particular thing, if that's the case.
Awesome. Anybody else want to jump in, or should we let Ernie go? I guess we're good. Go for it.
Thanks, everybody. I wasn't ready yet, but go ahead.
You need a couple of minutes? We can
No, I actually wanted to kind of do this where I was going to give you guys the address and then have, everybody kind of look into it so we can kind of determine whether it is a good buy or not based off of, kind of what's happening in the market, but really just kind of get people committed and doing action, right? And not just sitting here talking and listening.
Okay.
So
you want me to let you share the screen so you can put your, whatever it is you have on your screen?
Well, no, because that's on my phone and I'm on my computer, so it's not going to. I didn't get onto the computer video here early enough.
Well, up here in the cold north, we have broadband. I don't know what you guys have down there. So,
well, we have that speed fiber optics.
Okay, all right.
But the let's see here. Let me pull it up real quick and then I'll tell you what it is here. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, so I'll give you guys the address. So currently, just to kind of be clear with everybody, I am talking to this owner specifically to get it under contract. But so just full disclosure, that's one of the ones that's in the working. So if everybody just be respectful and not good trying to jump ship with it, but nonetheless, on this particular project, it is 119 and it's Linwood, Linwood Road, and it's in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. So how this came about, so we're kind of gotten both into where what you'll find in real estate, there's always never enough deals and never enough money, right? So we relied over the last several years on wholesalers primarily bringing us those opportunities, and there was a lot that was happening. So what we're finding now is that it's slowed up quite a bit, and so we're in a growth mode because now we're in a getting into that buyer's market. So we're back out marketing to sellers, and it could be you name it, divorces or distressed or pre-foreclosure, whatever the scenario is, we're just trying to make those connections. So this particular property came through that marketing. And when you pull up that property here,
Hey, Ernie, I've got it on my screen. Do you want me to share the photo?
Or, yeah, if you can.
All right.
That would be super helpful.
Can you see it?
I can. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So, so I want to kind of use this as a case study for everybody. So when we're looking at this property, a couple things I look at when obviously we're in Google, it probably tells you the date of when that picture was. So this particular gentleman has owned this for a while. He's owned it for like, I think 30 years. It was one that like a family member lived in, and but that was a couple years ago. They were kind of doing some work to it, and it's kind of been in that work mode for quite a few years. And so it really is one of those things that just needs finished out and needs some renovation. So I was actually scheduled to go see him today, and then we had to kind of change plans on his side. But so this, when diving down this the property, what he's asking is he's asking for $150,000, and obviously their renovation needs to get done. He's telling me that there's quite a bit of work that needs to get done to it. But those that don't know Kings Mountain area, there are a couple things that it's there's a reservation that's there, so we're getting a casino that's happening. So that's really kind of a driving force, and that's going to be happening over the next couple of years, that they're getting into building the actual casino itself. So that's kind of a big draw. And but then not only that, but this is a suburb of Charlotte, right? So that you're still within like a 40-minute drive to the airport. So it's a major hub. A lot of different things come out of that. So what's the immediate thought of this property for people? I want to kind of open the mics up and ask people to comment what their immediate thoughts are.
We have a small enough group, you guys can just unmute. And are you asking in terms of what to do to renovate the house, or in terms of deals or questions?
Just initial thoughts. Like, they may not. So obviously, like kind of Jane and Sharon leads to, they're buying in multiple states, right? So they're doing this.
Mhm.
They're doing the research. Gary, Indiana, Sarasota, Florida, Baltimore, wherever. They're not living in all these places. They're having to do research on these places. They're having to find people, boots on the ground. They're having to find people that are there that they're building the team with, right? So immediately when you're looking at this house, you have to start looking at the house, whatever kind of research you can find on pictures, like what did it sell for? What did it buy for? Obviously the comps around it, what are they going for and selling for? And, is the 150 that this particular person's asking, is that a reasonable offer? Is that a reasonable number to buy it at? And then it's kind of starting with that, kind of what we were talking about earlier with Aaron, starting with that end in mind and then working our way backwards. Does this fit the buy box for what you're looking for now? Or is this something that would be a good buy now at a higher price, knowing that you're going to have all these things happening in that area to it be a long-term rental for you, and or the property value obviously will go up over the next several years because of what's happening in the area. So I just kind of wanted to start the initial conversation with people and get them thinking and asking questions. So ask.
I haven't. Okay, so
Go ahead, Emma.
What's that?
How many bedrooms and baths you said?
I didn't say.
Oh, I'm just wondering how big is it?
So we're going to find that out real quick. Because that's part of why I wanted to bring this up. So right now they have on like Zillow, It's 1,404 square feet. He feels like it's closer to 1,500, but tomato, tomato. So ultimately, when you're looking at this, it's he says it's a 4-1, but realistically, it'd probably be better off as a 3-2, which I would agree.
So and I'm waiting for Jane and Sharon to jump in here because this is their wheelhouse, but just from an overall business perspective, I am super conservative. So the idea of saying, oh, when they build the casino, rents will go up by, 30% or whatever it is, it's like it either works now or I'm walking because that just gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about that, okay, they're going to bring in the casino and it's going to go up and stuff like I just can't do that. So, and I think you're probably the same way.
Yeah, we're
So-
definitely that way. It has to be what it is now, what you could get, because if you could get it, you already would have got it.
Yeah, and there's several different times, like in the last couple of years, where they said they're going to build an Amazon fulfillment center or have a metro going through, and then they reconfigured it within like a month and they changed went in a different direction. So
Correct.
unless it's there and they're in the building of it, then I wouldn't bank on that until it happens.
Yeah, there was an area down here, Port Charlotte, Northport, and they were going to do the big Port Charlotte harbor with a bunch of hotels and a bunch of this and that, and everybody was going crazy, like buying up houses for ridiculous prices, and thought the rents would go up and the workers would come. Well, COVID hit, they stalled the project altogether, and I don't think has moved forward yet. So,
And they did change the plans if they do come forward, which is they've reduced the projects by probably from like probably a fourth of what they were going to do. So, that I agree with James. And then of course, the way we like the creative strategies, I would see if there's a possibility for owner carry or some sort of finance opportunity, especially considering this is, you don't know what the rehab costs are, and it's from, just a cursory research.
So James, how much did you say your rehab cost was?
I didn't, but the normal formula we used to use was ARV. 65% of that minus whatever the rehab is would be my going in initial price, just back of a napkin.
No, I mean, kind of at the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about renovations per square foot. Like you were talking about building costs per square foot is $175 a square foot, which you felt like was a time frame. Did you have like numbers that you were getting? You said that was for rehabs that you were getting 175 a square foot.
That would be like, okay, something, we're going to do a pop-up, or we're going to build something on the back, or so for new construction, adding more square feet. That's about what it was. And to be honest with you, we didn't do by the square foot for the rehab costs. Every individual property was its own individual property. I think if I'd kept doing it, I think that's definitely the way to go. I'm sure that's probably the way you do it. But I only did like a couple of dozen, so I wasn't quite there.
Yeah. So I guess with the exercise, everybody's out here, they're learning, but what it is, they're never kind of pushed to jump, right? And that's kind of where, but pushing to jump with knowledge behind them. So that's kind of where you're coming to these groups and you hear, but you're not actually implementing and moving yourself forward because you're just listening and you're not actually doing. So that's kind of where, if people didn't bring an opportunity today, I wanted to kind of throw this in there and kind of have that conversation because I feel like it's greatly needed. And so that's why I just wanted to use this as an exercise. And Jane and Sharon and you guys, James, Nicole, you guys always do a great job. And so this is just kind of another layer of just adding some value to it. So in this, what would make this what would, in your guys' eyes, what would make this a good deal now? What does that look like? And then what would make you pass on this deal and why? I'll ask you those two questions because it's.
Okay.
So Jane and Sharon, can you guys?
Like the. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lance.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking at it. It looked like there's some cash sales around the neighborhood that were about 110. So maybe those would be flipped fairly soon. So I think like if you could get it the price lower than 150, obviously that's what he's asking, but I'm sure you can get it for lower. Then around the maybe 100 range could work, because I did see some sales around 200 to 220. Those are like 3 2s or 4 2s. So I'm not really sure, but it looks like it's a huge lot. So I don't know if you can subdivide it and do something there. Like that could be another opportunity. I don't know the zoning rules and laws, but that lot looks pretty big. So I don't know. Those are at least a couple of things that I would say to maybe think about. Like, can you get it for 110 or under? Obviously, you need to determine what your rehab costs would be. But also like it's just a big lot. Maybe that's normal down there. Again, I don't know the area, but it seems like, okay, maybe there's something else you could potentially do with that too.
Certainly. So you're hitting the right. So you're diving in. That's what I want you to do, is kind of start doing that researching, and then find out, okay, well, is this lot beside it his property? Is this all in one property? Do they happen to own that other property beside that? If so, are they interested in selling that, or is this a combo deal where now to kind of the part of building a new construction, does it make better sense? Because now I'm taking essentially one purchase with two properties. I'm splitting cost, so I'm able to get things at a lower cost. I'm rehabbing one while I'm building another, right? So there are costs that go along with that. The nice part is city water, city sewer. So we're not dealing with wells and septics, which is good. So I like the way you're thinking, and that's kind of where I want you guys to start doing, is think, all right, let's think outside the box. Like, what else do they have? Is this the only property they have? If you start searching their names and start going back through things, you'll find out, do they own other properties? Is this a by the owner, or is this an LLC, right? Is it, you start going those and you find out what it is on backside. So I agree with you. I feel like this is around that probably that 185, 188 range to about 224, I think is what I was coming up with, some comps. Obviously, aesthetically, it's got some slight curb appeal, but it would need to be captured. Like, you'd have to do some other things to really get that to pop more, in my opinion. So it's a matter of, like, I'd have to set out like a couple $1,000s in landscaping, and then doing some new columns and stuff in the front to really make that kind of pop. But again, at the end of the day, are you doing this for rental, or are you doing this for retail?
It'd be nice if you could do either at the end of the day, but usually you have to pick one or the other, at least for single family, I'm guessing, correct? Or not?
This is a single family, yeah. So, but I mean, ultimately, sometimes the best buys, you might not be able to sell tomorrow, but you'd be able to sell within 2 years, or something like that, right? So when I started out, I was house hacking, right? And this is house hacking before the term house hacking became popular, which I feel like I should have coined it, but different story. But when I look at this property, I would have looked at this, hey, I could buy this house. I'm handy. I can get in, do the work to it, turn around, live in it for 2 years. I can now do capital gains free. The economy's changed. What I could sell it for has changed, even though we're going into kind of more of a buyer's market. So if I can negotiate that deal with this potential seller to be in that 100 range or $110,000 range, I just gave myself another $30,000 or $40,000 of renovation cost instead of paying them at 150, right? So now how do I establish that relationship with him to really get him to be off the defense, because he's got a lot of people calling, asking the same thing. Hey, I want to buy your house. I want to buy your house. So that's this side of things, right? It's negotiation. Like, you have to go in there with your ammo ready for your to release. You want to know what those those point of pains are. You want to just build that credibility with them, the rapport, and then you don't even talk about the house. Like, the house is just kind of a thing. I want to talk about what's going on with, this owner and why, and what did he do, and, how he got here, and how many houses did he have, and what's the pain points, and maybe they still need some money. Maybe I'll work out a deal like what Jane and Sharon does, and does a creative deal where I still have them involved in it. Maybe I'm paying them $500 a month for 5-10 years, because they're not making any money off of it right now. And if I pay him $500 a month, I mean, at least he's making something off of it. I'm taking over the insurance. I'm taking over the taxes. I'm taking over the liability of the property, and taking the upkeep. All I'm doing is putting a cloud on the title with him, so he can't go and get a refinance without me, right? So we become partners. So what other kind of questions does everybody have? Or research?
Is it zoned for, is that actually a lot? Is it zoned for whatever the zoning would be, that you could actually put 2 houses on that size lot?
That is a good question. I'm going to pull up the GIS system, and we're going to go in there and see. Let's see what it says in there for it. And at this particular point, whether this house is in your area or not, this is just an example. So on what you're going to do in your areas is you're going to go into your GIS system, right, or your Polaris and whatnot, and you're going to type in the property address, and you're going to pull it up, and then it's going to give you what let's see. Let's see. Actually, that's Blue Book County. I'm in the wrong one. How's that? It's kind of funny. This area, it's got like 2 different counties, and you can be close. But this is part of the research you want to be doing on the properties that you're looking at, right? Is where do you go to find the information that you have questions on? So like I can go into this one. This one happens to be in Cleveland County in North Carolina. There's the planning services. There's the zoning services. So I can go into zoning, find out, about the land. We're going to go into the mapping and find out where the property is. We're going to take a look at that lot that is right there beside it. Let's see, address. But again, this is the exercise that I want you guys to be doing, because this is how you go and find your deals, your opportunities. You don't, when you have a lot of wholesalers out there, and they know what to bring back to the house. So you've taught them, you gave them the education, kind of like what they do with the virtual REI. They're giving you the education and knowledge to go out and find these opportunities for yourself and or for the group, right? Bring it back. And so when you do it, and you do it appropriately, you know what the buy box is, right? And so then you're also going to have all these other investors that you meet along your journey. They're all going to have different buy boxes, different states, different counties, different, whatever that is. And they're each going to go into their own category or group. And so when you start looking at deals and analyzing the deals, you don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis. Immediately, you go in, find out, okay, this is what he's asking. What's my comps? Yes, this, okay, 185 to 225. Like, you start looking at all of these things coming up. Does that make it for a good fix and flip? If I can only sell it at 225,000 and I'm buying it at 150, and I would have about $50,000 in renovations? Probably not, because like to James's point earlier, what's the holding cost? You have a realtor cost that's in there. You have closing costs that are involved in it as well. So we're in this business to make money, not to lose money, right? And so you got to be due diligent in what you're doing on the backside.
It's interesting in terms of what you're saying from the takeaways, and I love Langston's idea, kind of thinking outside the box. And just so you guys are aware, this is this is not limited to single family, right? We put in a $9 million LOI in the 72 unit that we basically came in with about 100 grand, right? And we got very, very close. They came back with a bunch of questions. How do I do this? How to do that or whatever it is. And unfortunately they didn't need the money, right? They were incredibly wealthy already. They're like, I love the deal because they like, doing deals and stuff like that. But they just took like 8 million in cash and, that wasn't worth it to us. So you can do a single family houses, you can do it. Another one that we're looking at now, a guy has 20 acres, properties on 10 of them. And we're like, wow, we could take that other 10 and either buy it and then choose to build on it later, or something that Nicole was talking about recently, give the guy 10, 20, 30 grand or whatever it is to buy the option, right? To buy that at a certain price within the next 5 years or whatever it is. And if it works out and it makes sense, great, we buy it and we move ahead. And if it doesn't, yeah, we drop 30 or 40 grand, but it was worth the risk. The back end was worth the risk. So just hanging out with people like Ernie and Jane and Sharon and Aaron and everybody else that's on here, I think you start thinking at a completely different level. And you start really expanding your knowledge base. And to be honest with you, it's actually a lot of fun putting a lot of these deals together. It's not just straight buy and sell kind of thing. So that's what makes it fun. And if you're having fun, you're making a lot of money. So
1,000%. All right. So the who was it that was asking the question or that had mentioned a couple things?
Langston, about the split?
Yeah, Langston. Yep. So have you done some additional stuff since you asked the question? Did you find out about the lot beside it?
No, I didn't. I didn't look up the GIS about the lot. I'll have to go to that site in that county and take a look. So I wasn't able to do that. I was really just looking more at some of the comps information, but I think the numbers you said were about exactly, spot on. I guess I don't know the houses in the area, or you mentioned, maybe keeping it for a couple years in rent. So I would need to probably just look at what the what the rents would be, right? So maybe I can go to like Rent-A-Meter and see what the average rents are for that area. I don't know if Airbnb could be a possibility, right?
Do you have Rent-A-Meter?
I do have a Rent-A-Meter. Let me go ahead and I too am on my phone. So I'm trying to work on the phone and keep this up. I already booted myself once, but I'm gonna try.
We're gonna see what we can do on this stuff here.
Okay.
And while I was looking at it, I just wanted to also let you know that, you look at the year of the house. This is an older house, so expect, the plumbing has to be redone. Yeah, so you're going to have to add extra to your scope when you look at the rehab costs, because it's going to need more plumbing. It's going to have uh-ohs when you open up the walls, especially these older homes. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. So the good part is I started having that conversation with him a little bit. So he has done some of those what we call the majors, the MMPs, the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, the windows and the roof. I mean, those are some of your major cost expenses and stuff. So he's done some of those already. To what extent or how long ago, that's yet to be determined. But your point to that, Sharon, is spot on.
Do you run the risk of, if you buy a property like this where someone has gone ahead, and I don't know what the laws are down there for that municipality, but in a lot of places they're like, oh, we looked it up and this guy didn't pull permits, so we're not going to give you an occupancy permit or whatever it is. Is there a risk there that if they didn't do it with permits, that maybe they are not compliant with a code and you're going to have to go in and rip it out and do it again?
Certainly, but what you I guess in some ways it really depends on where they're at in the stage. So I always kind of look at this thing as the onion, right? So how far do I have to pull back the onion layers to get to where Now I have this foundation to start from, to rebuild it from, right? So it's not like a new house where you just start from the core of the onion and start building your layers out. You're having to pull back and then go.
Right.
So so it really just depends on how far you have to go back. So now, if this was down to studs and they started doing those things and it all stopped, well, obviously everything's still down to studs, right? So that's an easy one. Now, if they started doing it, went through, did drywall, did all those other things, got their hands smacked because they did it without permits, and then they decided to go ahead and sell it as is, you come in and buy it, it doesn't justify the work that was done. You might not have to do it necessarily, but theoretically you should still, right? Like you'll still, because once the house has been built, it already has its CO. So that you don't lose like the CO of the building. You just don't get to reoccupy it until you go through the final inspections.
Okay.
So it's not like a brand new building because you have to go through it all. It's not been lived in, so it's got to go through all the final inspections and then get the final certification.
Right.
This thing must be right on the line, Cleveland County. But anyway, the exercise of this is, those questions that we're asking is finding out, what is the highest and best use. If I could look at this thing and say, hey, that lot that's beside it is able to be separated out of that, that in itself is worth probably about $40,000 or whatnot, and he's asking like 150. Now that brings me to the house cost of 110, so much to your point earlier in this conversation. So now that justifies the numbers a little bit better, right? But if everything is only on this house, does that house make sense to do it as a flip? Probably not. Does that make sense to do it as a retail as a rental? Because long-term, it's a long-term play and this is a slow game, right? So does that make sense to have rental coming in on that particular property now over the years, and then when it comes time to that the market is getting saturated because of everybody moving in, the equities start going up, you've paid your principal down, at that particular point, do you want to rehab it then for retail, or do you sell it, or do you just keep on cash flowing it as is? Or maybe do you change the business model back to like an Airbnb scenario? Like in real estate, you have to understand the market that you're in, the options of the games that you get to play within those in that market segment, and then go out and perform those games, right? And I heard it today, like for instance, like back in the 80s and 90s, we had tons of games, right? Like Monopoly and Sorry and Clue and all these other ones. So none of the same board games have the same rules, and they don't use the same boards. So everything's different. So I can't go take Monopoly and go play on Sorry. It just doesn't work. So it's the same thing when you relate it back to real estate. Like when you have an up market and a down market, it's just a different board game. It's a different set of skills and rules that go along with that. And you have to be able to look at that market and play the games accordingly with the markets that you're in. And I just thought that was a good takeaway of today's meeting I was at.
No, that's great. So yeah, and you can make money in every market as long as you're playing the right game. And I can't believe you said if you had a rental, you're going to sell it. I was like cringed. I'm like, don't sell it, never sell. But that's just me.
Well, but if it makes sense, I mean, because think about it. Like I had a rental property, and it was throwing off good cash flow, right? But what I could sell it for, I would have to rent it for like 3.5 years to get the same amount of money I could have got for it now. And so it's a matter of like, what am I trying to do? There's like long term, yes, you're trying to get more of that passive income coming in, the mailbox money, but what's a faster way for me to scale? So do I take that money out and then I go buy 2 properties with that so I can scale it faster and get that money, returning quickly, right, or more rapid? Like it really depends on what your game is that you're trying to go after, right? Is that fair?
Nope, absolutely. As long as you take that money out and go buy a multifamily, you're all good to go.
Yep. And eventually that's how it goes. I mean,
Right.
after you do so many single family houses, you're making a lot more money and you're starting to throw off 1031 exchanges. And,
Right.
it's kind of like you're in a different game. Now I got to kick this ball down, keep kicking it down the road because I don't want to get taxed. I
Right.
want to defer it. I want to do, you're playing all these different things because you don't want to pay Uncle Sam. It's all part of it.
Makes sense. Jane and Sharon, you guys have been very quiet, and this is kind of you guys are the experts here as well as Ernie. And you want to kind of jump in?
You know how we are. We have the program where we hold a note and, for the end buyer too, and we could spread it out 30 years. That way we don't have to get the calls in the middle of the night to make repairs, or every time the renter leaves, we have to, rehab it again and bring a new renter in. But we do both. We have where we have rentals and eventually they'll be paid off, and then that's good money there. So I agree, as many houses that you can own free and clear, that is the name of the game. And with real estate, you're always, it's always going to be upside. It's always going to increase in value. So I, see both points. We do both, we have both of them going on at the same time. So we have different programs because, when we do real estate from afar, it's so much easier just to get somebody in there on owner financing, and then they finish the rehab, make it their own, and then we're getting, we can stretch it out 30 years if we want and create the note and, just getting that mailbox money. And I understand it's not leaving the legacy for the next generations, and you don't own the house, but it's a good program as well.
Yeah, but they say, own nothing, control everything, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, you're involved in it. You're getting cash flow off of it. You may not own it, but you control it. So I mean, that's
yeah. And we have our rentals too that we have, and then we'll own them free and clear one day, and then that's just, all profit pretty much. So
yeah.
And then save up some money to get a multifamily like James said. But
That's when
yes,
you pull on the big
absolutely.
guns.
And I do like when we buy a house, even if, especially from a distance, but anytime we buy a house, we want to have exit strategies. We want to see if we can, we makes it sense to flip it or a rental. That way you have different exit strategies. That way, when the market changes, then you always have, you can always do something with that house, and, and three or four, when we do it from a distance, we'd like to have 4 or 5 exit strategies. When it's closer to home, we're happy with 2 of them, because you never know what's going to happen down the road. And like Airbnbs, this place, you're saying it's getting hot, and a lot of these things are coming in. The hotels might come in and squeeze out the Airbnbs. I've seen that happen with people. That's all they did was have a portfolio of Airbnbs, and then either the season, it wasn't a good season, and the cities started doing regulations, and then their whole,
Correct.
And that's all they had. It only made sense for one thing. And then they were upside down very quickly, and they got into a lot of trouble. So
yeah, but that's also where a lot of times, and that's also a lot of times where people are going in and essentially, house hacking with, going in and doing the, what am I thinking of? Renting, getting the rental or getting it under lease, and arbitrage is what I'm thinking of.
Arbitrage, master lease.
Yeah. So, and those are good because you have an exit to be able to get out. You don't actually have, not on the cuff of the debt of it, right? But
yeah, and then people make a mistake when they have their Airbnbs. They pull all the equity out of it, and then when they can't use them for Airbnbs anymore, then they're in, we've seen all these scenarios. So we kind of learn from others' mistakes, and we're very conservative and make sure we have exit strategies and we don't pull the equity out of houses. But to Ernie's, what you're saying is just get out there, find the deals, structure them, make sure you buy them right, and just go out there and make offers. The more offers you make, the more stick, and the more
it's the numbers.
Numbers
game, totally.
Go out there and meet people. You get deals coming to you. Like at the beginning, we were hustling, looking for deals, doing mail campaigns, going up to wholesalers and this and that. And now, as you go along more and you show your worth, then deals will start coming to you, and it becomes easier. Once you get your first or second deal, then they just starts rolling down for you and doing, really well. That first deal is the hardest, but then once you start getting them, you build momentum and they'll keep coming.
I think Bernie might have a question. Bernie, I know you typed in chat that you had a question.
Bernie?
Yeah, I would like to ask, where could I go to get funding for a fix and hold for a commercial building if I needed to get funded, and especially like in Hazleton, Pennsylvania area.
So what kind of commercial building you speak? I mean, commercial covers all, office, retail, multifamily. So, I mean, does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What do you
5 units and up, right?
Yeah.
It's a commercial building in the general industrial zone in Hazleton, Pennsylvania.
So like a warehouse or?
Well, it's 4,200 square feet, and it was being used as a auto repair shop.
Okay. So what are you trying to do with it? Or what is your thought process with this particular property?
What I have in mind is doing a demo, clearing the property and putting a brand new construction warehouse.
You're going to demo the building down completely and then build something brand new?
Right.
So then what would you be building in place?
A new warehouse. Saying like
that's the same square footage and stuff that you're tearing down?
Right.
So I'm going to ask you why.
The building is it has structural problems.
Okay. So I mean, it's in really that bad of shape that where like the best objection with it is just to go ahead and tear it down.
Right.
So then my next question would be is what are you getting it for? And then what would it be worth once you take that same structure and rebuild it to 4,200 square feet? Then what are you going to do with it? What is your play with that?
Well, when I already own the building.
You own the building right now?
Yes.
All right. So it's one that you already own. You closed on it. Was it your business before?
Was it in my business?
No. Was it your business that was in it? No.
It wasn't my business in it before. It was a tenant that was in the building leasing from another from the company that I.
Okay. Since it's your building, are you okay doing the address? Or you can send it to me individually or whatever?
Yeah, I could give it to you. There's no problem.
I want to take a look at what you're talking about, because my immediate thing is just having a conversation with you that I feel like you don't have a full clear vision of what it is that you're trying to do or what you want to do. And so it's going to be very hard to go get those funders in place because they got to be able to know that you're confident in what it is that you're doing and that you've done it before, or you have a team of people that you do it with. And I'm not getting that immediate impression off of what you're describing right now. So I'm just trying to do that investor language with you a little bit.
All right. I'll give you my email and because I don't want to just give out the address.
You're fine.
You can just do direct message in chat, Bernie.
Yeah, you can direct message in the chat. Yeah, if that's the case. But I was just kind of curious because I wanted to see, really at the end of it. So, okay, let's just fast forward, you demo the building, you build a brand new one. Now what are you going to do with it? Is it you just going to look for another tenant to put in there? What's the end goal? Like, what do you, or is this going to be kind of a custom thing? Are you trying to build it back to being a garage? Or are you just trying to deliver a shell and do a triple net lease to someone? Like, what's the end play?
And when I put a new construction warehouse building, I would like to, have different spots where I could lease out to different companies and have EV charging stations in the parking lot, and also have it like a fully functional green warehouse type building where it's mostly where it's like LEEP certified.
So let me ask you something, Bernie, in terms of kind of in line with what Ernie's talking about. So your initial question was funding, right?
Right.
So when you go and get funding from an institution, right, who's going to be your biggest partner, right? So a lot of people look at banks and it's like, it's me against the bank. Gotta get, gotta this. At the end of the day, they're your biggest partner and you kind of have to treat them that way, right? So the partner's thought process, and kind of put yourself in their shoes, right? So if I came to you, Bernie, and we were friends, and I said, hey, Bernie, you want to lend me like, 20 grand? I want to go and play the stock market. Right. So hopefully, unless you have a ton of money, your
That's
question
a
would
big
be like,
gamble.
well, have you done it before? Have you got a track
Right.
record? What are the stocks
Right.
you're looking at? Because at the end of the day, you want to make income, right? Whatever you're going to charge him for interest, if you charge him interest, and hopefully you do. So it's kind of a business transaction. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you get your money back, right? You're not just kind of throwing away 20 grand. So when you go to an institution, a lender, a private investor, or whatever it is, you have to be able to present a plan to them that you've, to Ernie's point, you've thought all the way through, so they can go, oh, okay, I know that based on Bernie's plan, my money is secure to a point. I mean, it's an investment, right? So nothing's ever 100%, but they have to be comfortable enough with your business plan, just like you would want to be comfortable enough with a guy that's, borrowing 20 grand from you, that you would get your money back, right? So you got to put yourself in their shoes. And to Bernie's point, in terms of what are you going to actually do with the building, I would encourage you that before you actually go and speak to a lender, think all the way through and do a little research on, okay, this is the area. I want to build an environmentally friendly building and stuff like that. I want to have EV chargers, excuse me, to do that. So if you came to me, I'd be like, okay, great. What's the demand for, EV vehicle charging stations in that area? How many cars that are electric are in that area? What does the population look like? Is it growing? Is it getting smaller? In terms of like just demand, what kind of demand is there for your product is going to go a long way towards having someone fund it for you. And then you have to have the business plan, and business plan is just kind of a fancy way of saying, what are you going to do to make sure this thing makes money? But again, I can't reiterate Ernie's point enough, is that you really have to go all the way through before you go to an institution or a private lender to ask for the money. And when you do, you have to put yourself in their shoes and figure out, okay, if it was me, what would I want to know to make sure my money was safe? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I understand that. But
Okay.
I wanted to know, who can I go to? Who's the funders that can I talk to set up this type of deal? Like, who's the
Yeah, you'll find that there's a lot of different institutions that would end up doing that. But again, to what James is talking about is having that clearer picture for them. They want to know how much my return is, how long is going to take for me to get my money back. And that's a private investor, that's a hard money investor, that's the institutions. I mean, they all have their different parameters The more of the private investors and hard money investors, they want shorter time frames, higher returns. Banks are going to be lower, lower interest, longer terms. But at the end of the day, they also want you as the investor to be invested in it. So you have the collateral of the property already. You're willing to use that as leverage. What is the value on that? Then there's a lot of different things that go into painting the picture for them, for them to be able to be like, yeah, that's a good investment.
I'd like to know, what's the best lane to go? Is it to go regular with a conventional bank? Is it to go with a hard money lender? Is it to go with a
here's what I would encourage
chamber?
you to do, Bernie, and maybe this will kind of help guide you. So obviously hard money is expensive, right? The best money to get you can most of the time is going to be some sort of institutional money, right? And for something like this, I suspect you can't really go to like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or US Bank or whatever it is, right? If it's a smaller market, you'd probably be better off talking to like local banks. There's regional banks, there's local banks, and that kind of thing, and that are familiar with the area and go, oh yeah, I know that building, I know that area, whatever it is. So at least you've got some comfort level. Now, the challenge there is if you have 3 banks that are all local banks, right? And you go to one of them and you kind of say, hey, well, what I need to do this. And they're like, wow, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You might burn that relationship. So if it were me, what I would do is just like when you're looking for multifamily, when you want to practice, you go into another market and practice with brokers there. I would kind of reach out to a couple of the small banks, maybe, or a regional bank and say, hey, something, if I want to do this, what do you need from me? Do you have a list of stuff that you want? What paperwork, what plan, what do you need from me? Because then at least it gives you some guidance in terms of what you need to put together to have them even look at your deal. And that'll kind of give you some direction. Does that help?
Yeah. Yes. It helps. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that would be step 1.
Right. Okay.
Like there's like just Googling, commercial lenders. I mean, there's Fundable, there's Best Money, there's Renaissance, there's Bridgewell. I mean, then you get into like commercial lending and banking, so then there were companies like, used to be like the BB&T that were for us. And then, they had their commercial division. They kept all their real estate actually in their own portfolio. So they're invested in that deal. They're like now, I think Truist or something that's in there. So to James's point, they're out there. So you have to determine what it is that is your overall package that you're going to deliver. Show them what the numbers are on the return. This is how much money that you're looking for sourcing. And this is the new construction. They're going to be in first lien position and it's a protection. They're going to look at it and they're going to do their due diligence on it and find out whether it's a viable business opportunity for them or not.
Okay. So I get you. Just structure a business plan and try to get with the regional banks.
Yeah, because if you have one building of 4,200 square feet and you have one tenant, and it takes you a long time to place that one tenant, you're paying for it, right?
Right.
So, but now to your point, if you went through and said, "Hey, I'm going to do 4 tenants in there at 1,000 square feet a piece," now I got 3 tenants in there and I have 1 vacancy. You're not getting hit as hard. So you got to look at it as what is the highest, the best use for that 4,000 square foot building that you're wanting to do, and what's the cost per each and everything else.
Okay.
Good and good.
But I was definitely just trying to put multiple tenants in the building after.
And you can probably do like several $400 or 400 square feet or 500 square foot places in there, and you could break it out into a lot. But then again, you get into, now you're getting into parking spaces, and you're getting into some of the logistics that way of providing marked spaces for certain people. What's the traffic flow with each of the businesses you're getting in there? Like, you know, there's a lot of different things that go along with it. So anyway, I know that we're at 8 o'clock. We kind of went with one project and trying to jumped around to a few things. So Jane, Sharon, James, I appreciate it. I didn't want to
No, that was
overstep
awesome,
it.
man. I appreciate you taking the time to actually put all that together, and you put a lot of thought into it. So we appreciate that very much. We are a little bit over, but it was good because I think we had a really, really good conversation. So I think there's a lot of value there. So going forward, for everyone that is used to coming in for the academy at 7:30, and obviously you came in early, so obviously you got the emails, but going forward, it'll be 6:30. Not 6:30 for multi and then 7:30 for single. It'll be at 6:30, and we'll have a different subject every week. And we'll kind of mix it up. You know, we'll do a little multifamily, we'll do a little single family, we'll do a little bit of notes and stuff like that. So that way you can learn about a lot of different strategies. So when you do find a deal, you can look at it and go, oh, can I do a note with this? You know, oh, it's a 5 unit. Can I do X, break it up, whatever it may be. So hopefully there's some value there for you guys. Jane, Sharon, any final words?
This was great. And thank you for your input, Ernie. And thank you everybody else for, having your questions and bringing some content in. It was great. A great meeting.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Ernie, thanks again, everybody. And I hope you have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye.
You also, everyone. Thank you.